Welcome to ZIKA Examinations Answering Techniques for Business Management. I'm your presenter, Choto Siame. The goal of this presentation is to equip you with the skills to help you improve on your success rate in this course, Business Management. I'll start by looking at the introduction. This course introduces students to the following: wider concepts of business organization and governance, environmental influences, leading and managing individuals and teams, recruiting and developing effective employees, and information and communication in business management. What are some of the objectives and learning outcomes of this course? Upon completion of this course, students should be expected to explain the structure and nature of business organization and their governance, identify the environmental factors and establish how they affect the management of organizations, apply management theories in the establishment of procedures, and leading and managing individuals and groups in organizations. Explain the role of management in recruiting effective employees, explain the management of the marketing functions, and finally, explain the role of information and data in organizations and how it is communicated. What are some of the general competencies that are expected of you as students? What should you demonstrate in this course, Business Management? So you need to demonstrate knowledge, comprehension, and analysis of the topics on which the examination is based. Present answers required by the question. Use words in answers that are in line with the question. Develop answers from introduction, development, and conclusion. Where necessary, provide relevant examples to support your answers. In short, know this information very well, study your syllabus, know all the concepts, have a good comprehension of all the key terms. When you're writing your examination, make sure that your essays are in line with the question. Don't just go off, going around the circles. Let your answers be concise, and as necessary or where necessary, support your answers with relevant examples. What are the common mistakes exhibited by students? I will highlight some of them here. The first one is not understanding the question in full. Misreading questions or their parts, answering only parts of the question. It's very important that you read the question and understand it in full. The first few minutes before the examination starts are the minutes that you look through an examination paper, thoroughly understanding the questions and selecting which ones you're comfortable in answering. In terms of answering only parts of the question, this is because examiners have noticed that sometimes students perhaps get carried away and will only answer part of the question and leave the other part. So for example, you may be asked to define leadership and explain the 3 characteristics of effective leadership. So whether it's due to time or just nerves or whatever may be going on, a student may only answer the first part, which is defining of leadership, and not answer the second part, which is explaining the characteristics of effective leadership. That just means as a student, you will lose out on a lot of marks because you did not answer the question in full. Inability to explain relationships between concepts. What do I mean here? For example, when you're asked to explain the relationship between motivation and job satisfaction, you may know what motivation is as a standalone and know what job satisfaction is on its own. But you should be able to explain the relationship. How does motivation relate to job satisfaction? Okay? So for instance, a worker who is motivated will eventually lead into that worker having a high level of job satisfaction. So whenever a person is not motivated, their job satisfaction levels will be low. But if they are motivated, their job satisfaction will be high. Inability to explain how a concept can be used in practice or real life. For example, you may know the motivational theory. One of the motivational theories, for example, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You may know that this is a pyramid starting from the lowest needs to the highest level need. So you would know about physiological, safety and security, social esteem, and self-actualization. But are you able to apply this to a workplace situation? Supposing you were a manager, how would you handle physiological needs of your employees? So you have to start looking at how you can relate these terms to practice in real life. So for example, if I were looking at physiological, I'm looking at those basic needs of workers like a fair salary, fair wages, workers being able to afford food, being able to afford to rent a place where they can live, because that need, the psychological need, is being met. So as an employee, what can I do? What can I do in terms of the safety and security needs? So you'd have to look at all those and relate them in terms of practice. How would the manager address all these needs? Confusing some concepts for others due to poor understanding of the same. Failure to provide solutions to managerial business problems, challenges, or dilemmas. Sometimes you may be presented with a scenario type of question where the examiner is asking, what should the manager do in such a situation? So these are questions where you need to apply a solution to that particular scenario that has been presented. Another common mistake, which is a failure to provide solutions to managerial business challenges or dilemmas. This is a situation where a scenario type of question will be presented. This is where an examiner wants to know what kind of critical thinking skills you have. In such a situation, you will have to read the case problem or the scenario and come up with a solution that the manager can come up with to resolve that particular dilemma. Because if, for example, the scenario is saying, should the manager do this or do that? You as a student should be able to come up with a solution looking at both situations, what would be the pros and what would be the cons of choosing a particular solution. And then generally, these are just some general mistakes that students make. The habit of highlighting the entire page, sometimes even the whole textbook. Okay? So what usually happens when you're highlighting everything, you end up not remembering anything. Okay? Being a multitasker, you're trying to do work for all your classes at the same time by constantly switching back and forth between projects. This is common when students are feeling the pressure of final examinations. The media frenzy. This is where you're trying to study, at the same time you're texting friends, you're checking social media, WhatsApp messages and so on are coming up and beeping on your phone. So your attention is really split up into different directions and is not fully focused on your revision, on the studying that you were trying to do. The solo mission talks about that person who always wants to study in solitude, refuses to ask for help from anyone, and that also could be a downside to your studying, because sometimes you need to be in that group setting. You obviously know some people that are taking the same course. You get together. If there are concepts that you don't understand, another person in the group may understand the concepts better than you do. And then lastly, poor handwriting, spellings, and grammar. Poor handwriting is a very big thing, a very big problem when students write their examinations. This is very problematic when examiners are marking your scripts. So the poorer your handwriting is, the more difficult it will be for the examiner to sort through what you were trying to say. So this is a very important point, to make sure that your handwriting is good, it's legible, and therefore making it easier for your examiner to mark. In general terms, I'm touching here on the quality of your presentation. Most of your essays as you know, in business management, you have the first section, which is multiple choice, is compulsory. And then the second section always involves essays, of which you may be asked to answer 3 or answer 4. So the quality of your presentation, the ideas that you come up with, should be presented as a good narrative in a good, logical way. The examiner should not be struggling to make out what you were trying to say. Okay? Then there are times where there is no one right answer to a question. It depends on you, on how you are able to convince the examiner of the reasonableness of your particular solution. As far as practice is concerned, it is possible with good practice to develop a technique that can help you improve in tackling more popular examination questions. So again here, I'm just saying practice, practice, practice. The only way you're going to get good in your examinations in this particular course of business management is you need to practice. Look at old past papers, go through them, develop a technique of answering questions. So the main objective of this presentation is to help students with both technique and practice. Okay. Here I'm just going to talk about the common examination instruction words. You may be familiar that examiners will use words such as define, describe, discuss, explain, compare, and so on. So when you see a word like define, this is just asking you to give meaning to an idea or the meaning of an idea, either a dictionary definition or a technical definition. If you're asked to describe, you are giving details of processes, properties, events, and so on. If you're asked to explain, you are giving detailed reasons for an idea, principle, or result, situation, attitude, and so on. You may need to give some analysis as you are explaining. When you're comparing, you are putting items side by side to see their similarities and their differences, giving an objective view to your answer. At the start of your examination, it is very important to read the instructions. Read and follow the instructions on the question paper, taking note of the number of questions to be answered. Further, pay attention to any other instructions and announcements from invigilators for possible correction. In other words, don't get too familiar with that exam or with the paper. Just because you've looked at past papers does not mean the instructions will be the same.
Take your career prospects to the next level with ZIKA.
Our diploma in accountancy is an essential qualification if you're planning on entering the accounting profession.
The ZIKA tax program at both certificate and diploma level equips you with an enhanced understanding of the field of taxation.
Our diploma in public sector financial management is ideal for accountants or trainee accountants working in the public sector.
And CA Zambia, a respected designation designed to ensure that graduates are highly trained to hold senior positions in the workplace.
You can study through flexible options like self-study as well as part-time or full-time through our accredited tuition providers.
ZIKA sponsors the top CA Zambia graduate to the One Young World Summit for Young Leaders and also offers scholarships to the top university accountancy graduates from recognized universities.
Visit zika.co.zm now for more information or find us on Facebook and LinkedIn.
Don't delay, your future awaits.
Question identification. Mark the questions that seem to be easiest for you. That is, questions that trigger plenty of ideas. So mark those first in the order that they'll be answered. Time allocation and question selection. Here we're still at the start of the exam. Make an appropriate time allocation based on the load of each question. Then select questions in order of their simplicity and time required to prepare the solutions. Attempt easiest questions first. Questions can be attempted in any order. Okay? This is a skill to allow you to properly use up your time. The 3 hours that you are assigned can look like a lot in the beginning. It looks like you've got plenty of time. But before you know it, the invigilator will be announcing 30 more minutes. And if you don't plan appropriately, you may find that you still have 1 or 2 questions that you still haven't answered. So in your allocation, you need to ensure that you select those questions that you know a lot about, that are easier for you. Sort them out first. Answer them first so that you can leave the harder question to the end. Okay? Then questions can be attempted in any order. Just means if you selected to answer question 1, 3, and 5, there's no harm in you starting with question 5, then 3, then 1, as long as you correctly number your answers. There is no need to leave any blank pages. Ensure that all questions are attempted and start the answer to each question on a fresh page. During the examinations, tackling the questions, understanding the question. Read the question carefully. It will be worth it. You may ask yourself the following questions. Is there more than one question? What does the examiner really want? What issues are being raised by this question? Sometimes a question may be 3 parts in one question or 2 parts in one question. So it's very important for you as a student to read the entire question fully and notice if there's more than one question within the question. That way you will ensure to answer all parts of that question. Answering the question. Make a rough answer plan, jotting down key points that come to mind and arrange them into some kind of order. This may take some few minutes, but will help you in presenting a satisfactory and orderly answer. This just helps to plan out what you're going to say before you actually transfer it into the actual answer that will be presented for marking. I'm still talking about during the examinations, how you would tackle skills for tackling the questions. Definitions of key examination terms. It is important to define key terms that are part of the question, even if you haven't been asked to do so. This indicates to the examiner that you know the concepts, and it gives you a better chance to remember and adequately address the requirements of the question. So for example, you're asked to explain the difference between management and leadership. Start by first defining the 2 terms. So define management and define leadership. Then go further into explaining what the differences are between the 2 concepts. Opinions and comments. Where an opinion or comment is required by the examiner, feel free to express your thoughts, provided they can be backed by evidence or other sources. This is a situation where an examiner asks a specific question, maybe A is a specific question on a given scenario, B might be a specific question, and then maybe there might be a C saying, what is your opinion, or give your opinion on this matter. So you are free to express what your opinion is, but back it up with evidence as to why, or sources, other sources that support what you're thinking and what you're saying. Be concise and relevant. Always try to keep to the point. Identify issues raised in each question and build up the answer around them. Do not go off a tangent. In other words, do not go off topic, as this may result in you getting fewer marks. If you're all over the place, but you're not getting to the point, even if you've written 2 pages, you still get fewer marks because the examiner did not see the point that you were making when they're marking, because you waffled all over the place, but there was no real answer in that essay. Okay. During the examination, we're still tackling the questions here. Quality of presentation. Remember that neat writing and tidy layout always create a good impression to examiners, which may result in you earning extra marks. And then you have to go through your work. Your final task is to read quickly through your answers and make any corrections and/or last-minute additions. Towards the end of the examinations, this is where you have to really manage whatever time you're remaining with, managing final minutes. Make sure you move to the last question even if the previous one is incomplete. You tend to earn more marks at the beginning of an answer than towards the end. Hence, it is wise to make a start, however brief. If you are desperately short of time as a result of poor planning, then write brief notes or headings for the examiner. What does this mean? You're coming to the end, perhaps you're only remaining with 10 minutes before the examination is over. Rather than leave that fifth question that you haven't answered, rather than just leaving it blank and not doing anything about it, make a few points regarding what the answers may be to that question. Meaning that you don't have enough time at that point to really write it in essay form, but you can just write it in bullet form so that even as the examiner is marking, they can give you a few points for that, as opposed to not attempting the question at all. Making use of spare time. If you have spare time before the end of the examinations, add relevant additional points to your completed answer wherever necessary. So you've got spare time, there's still some more minutes before the exam ends, go back to the questions that you've already answered and add any extra points that you've thought of at that particular moment. At the end of the examination, you want to consider answer sheet arrangement. Make sure that all the answer sheets are correctly numbered and collated. Submit it to your invigilator. Don't leave it lying on the table. Examinations are passable. That's something that you should carry with all the time. Don't be intimidated because you've heard that such a subject is difficult and so on, or very few people pass that subject. Examinations are passable. The above techniques in this presentation should be thoroughly practiced by working through previous questions in past papers and getting your tutor or lecturer to comment on what you have written. Again, going back to practice, 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 go through the papers, the past papers, get in touch with your tutors, get in touch with other colleagues who may help you with other concepts that you do not quite understand. In continuation with practice, remember practice does not make perfect, but brings about continuous improvement. Perfection comes at the end of one's life journey, therefore keep practicing. I would like to show you a sample compulsory multiple choice question. In this question, I'm asking, in what order do managers typically perform their management functions? We've got 4 options in terms of an answer. We have organizing, planning, controlling, leading, organizing, leading, planning, controlling, planning, organizing, leading, controlling, and planning, organizing, controlling, leading. As a student, how would you go about answering this question? You would know through your study of business management that the order of management functions does not start with organizing. Therefore, A and B will automatically be eliminated, and you'll be remaining with C and D. Okay? So C and D are a little bit similar in terms that they're both starting out planning, organizing. The other one says planning, organizing. The difference is in the third function here, which is leading, whereas the other one is controlling. Okay? So in reviewing the answers, we have to, in our minds, go through the functions of management, which are: a manager plans first, sets objectives, decides how to accomplish them. Next, a manager organizes, organizing resources, which is human or physical resources. A manager then leads, that is to inspire, to influence, motivate, to accomplish important tasks. And finally, a manager controls, that is monitoring performance and taking corrective action. So after carefully reviewing all the possible answers, A through D, we find that the logical answer, according to the management functions, is C, which is planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. I would also like to share with you a sample essay question. A says, distinguish between internal and external recruitment, which has 10 marks. B says, explain the ways in which organizations can fulfill the following needs as set out by Maslow's hierarchy. By now, you know that Maslow's hierarchy is that pyramid of needs, starting from the lowest need, physiological, followed by safety, followed by social, followed by esteem, followed by self-actualization. So in answering this question, when you go back to A, you want to, in an essay form, these are the options that you would be considering. I mean, not options, but these are the key points that you would be considering. Internal recruitment involves recruiting existing employees. Advertising is done inside the firm. It is inexpensive to advertise. Can motivate employees as they have a chance to be promoted. Employee is known, less risky. Routine is unlikely to change, draws from a narrow pool and may not result in the best selection. So if you have these key points in mind and you've jotted them down, it will be easy for you to start writing that essay. When you look at external recruitment, you can jot down that it's recruiting of new employees, external employees. Advertising is external, can be expensive to advertise, can motivate employees as management positions are filled with new staff. Can demotivate employees as management positions are filled with new staff. Unknown employees are hired, which can be risky because these are people that you don't know, brings in fresh new ideas, draws from a vast pool, which can take longer to select. So these are key points that you can quickly jot down on your rough paper or in the back of your answer booklet, and then take them and form them into an essay, comparing and contrasting. If the question calls for the differences, like in this case, then you are just stating the differences side by side. The second part was talking about the needs, the hierarchy needs. In terms of security, safety and security needs, we're talking about a company providing safety equipment, job security, providing secure facilities, fair wages. Again, these are points that you would jot down and later formulate into an essay. How about esteem needs? This is offering management training, offering internal promotion, allowing staff to take lead on projects, giving praise and recognition for good works. Again, after jotting them down, formulate this into an essay. I've now come to the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, clarifications, please do not hesitate to contact Zambia Institute of Chartered Accountants. Thank you.